Okay, it is December of 2023. A lot of people are probably looking at buying computer components, especially graphics cards. And right now it is so easy to just buy the absolutely wrong one because the deals that we thought were good, more towards the beginning of the year aren't good anymore. We need to take an in-depth look at this. I just want to help you guys out. So we're going to go through every single price bracket right after a word from our sponsor. PowerColor Red Devil 7900 series beefy graphics cards can look even cooler with custom backplates. With the awesome looking generative and intrusive backplates, you can customize your GPU to your heart's content. And it's never been so gosh darn easy. These things have magnets on them. These backplates are available at any of your favorite shops. And if you're interested, go ahead and check the link in the description, along with other products on PowerColor's website, like this mouse pad that looks really cool. Huge thanks to PowerColor for sponsoring this video. And let's get right back into it. So the entry level point for graphics cards, $200 nowadays to get an RX 6600. This is probably the best deal on the new market right now. Or you could maybe go to Intel and get the Arc A750. Yeah, we've seen this card go for as low as, like $185. But I just did some tests and these cards generally perform around the same. Now, you guys all know I do like used graphics cards. And the reason I didn't start off with talking about the used ones, and I started off talking about the new ones like the RX 6600, I don't know if people have been taking the advice, and RX 5700 XTs, $150 now. Now, I just did a comparison video. If you want to look more in depth on it, I'll link it in the top. Yes, the 5700 XT is faster than the RX 6600, usually by like 20% or so. I don't know, the price is getting close enough that you're getting a newer generation card with the same amount of VRAM, and then you also get warranties. And don't get me wrong, it's still a decent deal, but it's not perfect. And if you wanted to go NVIDIA on this budget entry level card, could maybe look at the RTX 2070, which can be found for about $180 on the used market, around in there, a little bit higher it seems like. What is nice about these NVIDIA cards is at this budget price point of $200, you will be getting DLSS. You'll technically be getting okay ray tracing. This price point, don't expect to use ray tracing at all. Like, it just isn't gonna be good. What sucks about the budget cards within the market right now, like the 6600 is an okay deal, but if you jump up to the 6650 XT, which is significantly faster as shown by this here, because the 6650 is $250 right now. According to Daniel Owen here, we've seen the same card, 6650 XT, go as low as $210 right now. But then these deals are so variable that it's really confusing. That's one of the reasons I want to make this video. If you really are on the budget, I would really recommend to wait until the 6650 XT gets down to $210 again, as shown by Daniel Owen here. You might be interested too, is like, oh, what is NVIDIA offering on this low end? Well, if you're not going to buy a 2070 on the used market, your only option is to get the RTX 3050. This card is $210. If you look at this in benchmarks compared to the 6600 or especially the 6650 XT, it gets destroyed by those cards. If you're on this budget, you're not going used, you just, like, NVIDIA isn't an option. And what's even crazier is NVIDIA is actually going to be making the 3050 even worse. So they're actually going to be replacing the 8GB model with a 6GB version. Now, we will see some better NVIDIA cards a little bit later in here, but yeah, 3050, it's a garbage card. Now, there is one other option. If you can't wait for a better deal on the 6650 XT, we might see some deals roll around the holiday season here. But the 7600, in terms of power efficiency, performance, these cards are like the same. So if they're going to be the same price anyways, the only advantage to getting the 7600 is basically to get AV1 encoding. That's the only practical thing. So if you're a content creator or something like that, you might want AV1 encoding on your GPU. Now, as we enter the $300 price point, we actually see some options from NVIDIA. It's not amazing, but the RTX 4060 with 8GB of VRAM, like those other cards, does come in at $300. It performs the same as the 7600 and the 6650 XT, so it isn't that inspiring, but you do get DLSS and better ray tracing at this price point. This card might be fast enough to do some ray tracing in some specific scenarios, but I wouldn't really count on it most of the time. Now, one of the big things about the 4060 is it's 8 gigabytes of VRAM. We've seen in a lot of games that 8 gigabytes is kind of a problem, and it's going to become more of a problem. You could actually, if you want to stay on the NVIDIA side, in terms of performance, this card isn't as fast, but you can get an RTX 3060 with 12 gigabytes of VRAM for actually $20 less than the 4060. You're not going to be getting frame generation from this card because it's not a 40 series card, but you do get 12 gigabytes of VRAM on NVIDIA at a decent price point. So in terms of performance, that's where it falls short. And that's where, if you really just want to guarantee the VRAM and getting good performance for the price, I would actually recommend going to the 6700 XT, which you can get for $320 right now. We have seen this card, regularly go below $320, as low as $300. So it's actually the same price as the 4060, but has 12 gigabytes of VRAM. To me, it makes the 6700 XT the clear option at that price point. The only downside is you're not going to be getting DLSS. Okay, so this is the best option for around $300. You could jump up to the 6750 XT. You can see right now it's actually only $20 more than the 6700 XT. What this card basically is just a 6700 XT, but overclocked a little bit, like only about 7-8% faster, but it's pretty much proportional to the money that you spend more. So you do get faster performance if you spend more. Now, in terms of the used market, the RTX 3070 is actually faster than the 6700 XT and the RTX 4060. And this card is going on the used market for about $300, just like these other cards. Although you're getting that same problem, is that freaking 8 gigabytes of VRAM. You see it right there. That is one of the major killer points about the 3070. And a lot of people that have 3070s now, that's why there's so many on the used markets, because people want to get rid of them. It's fast enough, be playing games at 1440p where you need more VRAM, but it doesn't have enough VRAM to utilize the power that the card has. So now we can also look at the 6700 XT on the used market. I don't think that this card going for $280 on the used market is that much better of a deal. I would personally just pay a little bit more and get it brand new. You just get warranties and stuff like that. And at times, 6700 XTs go for like $300 new anyways. But let's go ahead and move on to a little bit of a higher price bracket. What does NVIDIA offer at $400? Well, the 4060 Ti was NVIDIA's one of their major failures this year.
They've done it. They've made the worst $400 generational improvement ever to launch in this industry.
It was criticized very heavily for being $400 and having 8 gigabytes of VRAM. To this day, it's still at $400 with 8 gigabytes of VRAM. We've seen some of them go down to like $380 over time, but that does not make the 4060 Ti a good deal, especially 8 gigabytes of VRAM. It's getting plagued by the same thing that the RTX 3070 does. To me, that's just something that just you wouldn't want to buy into. NVIDIA just doesn't really have a good option here at this price point. That's what really sucks. What I would recommend is actually between two different graphics cards right now. The RX 6800 non-XT is actually a pretty decent deal. We've seen this card go for as low as $370. So if you are interested in buying a 6800 or around $400 card, but we've seen some really freaking good deals on this graphics card. But if you're just looking at current prices right now, okay, the 7700 XT, these cards perform about the same, but the 7700 XT only has 12 gigabytes of VRAM, whereas the 6800 has 16 gigabytes of VRAM. It seemed like they might have sold out of all of these cards. Maybe that's why I just realized that there's only one option here, and that's crazy. That flash sale might have just sold out all of the 6800s. That's absolutely insane. 12 gigabytes of VRAM on the 7700 XT is probably enough to get you by for a few years, especially because this is a 1440p graphics card. Now, what would be the advantage of going with the 7700 XT instead of the 6800? Well, this would be better power efficiency with this card, as well as you do get AV1 encoding with the RX 7000 series graphics cards. Again, if you're a content creator, this can be useful for you. Yes, the 7700 XT, in terms of this, it seems like, yes, 6800s have been a very good deal compared to that card, but all of a sudden, it looks like they're like sold out. Now, the other thing that we need to talk about is 6800 XTs. Now, you might look at this like, oh, that's not that good of a deal, around like $480. Seeing this card, go as low as $440 on a flash sale. I've been able to test this one. I own this. As long as you're not focused on ray tracing, you can get a lot of performance out of this at 1440p, usually high ultra settings, maybe even maxing out games minus ray tracing. If you can find this and spot it on a deal for $440, $450, but now it's time to move up to like the $500 price point. And what options do we have? So I've been someone who's recommended the 7800 XT a lot in the past, okay? And if you look at these cards, the 7800 XT is like $520, $530. Now the MSRP of this card is $500 flat. Now this card is a little bit faster than the 6800 XT, but not all that significant. To me, if you're not paying $500 for the 7800 XT, it doesn't sound like all that great of a deal. That's because the RTX 4070, now this card is $540. This is that price point where it's like, oh, ray tracing actually matters now. Getting an NVIDIA graphics card and getting DLSS and stuff really starts to sway you. The only downside to actually going for the 4070 here is that limited VRAM. But at the same time, 12 gigabytes is probably okay for the RTX 4070. It's not perfect. I wish it had more. It has slightly better power efficiency than the 7800 XT, and all of this just to pay a little bit more. Now, you might be interested, what about the used market? Because you can get the performance of these cards, but for cheaper. We did just talk about the RTX 3080 compared to these cards, and this card, it seems like people are watching the videos or something, but these cards are selling out on the used market or their prices are going up. So RTX 3080s on the used market used to be going for $400 flat, and they were a really good deal. They're still an okay deal. They're looking at like $430 now. But the RTX 3080 does have a major problem with its VRAM. 10 gigabytes. Again, I know the 4070 has 12. If you do want 16 gigabytes of VRAM, you could go over to AMD's offering on the used market. They're actually going for about the same price now, or a little bit lower in some cases. If you don't need NVIDIA or care about ray tracing all that much, then the 6800 XT is a good deal. If you do want a reference point on the 3080, I daily drive the GPU most of the time, and I don't use ray tracing at all. Yes, it's technically fast enough to use ray tracing. Same with the RTX 4070. I don't know how many people actually realistically use ray tracing. I did want to check this really quick too. From last generation AMD, it looks like the 6950 XT has finally sold out, or pretty much $780. It's a little bit faster than all those other cards, 4070s, 7800 XTs, 6800 XTs, 3080s. It is at a price where it's kind of unreasonable. But I think that is the sweet spot, that $500, $600 range. I think that's where the best deals are on GPUs, which is a shame. It just kind of is what it is. If you want to jump up though, I'd say your next price point is going to be around $700, which is kind of a shame. You can get a 7900 XT with 20 gigabytes of VRAM, $770. But we have seen this card drop as low as, like $730 at times. It could be found at a better deal. And that's something you need to watch out for. But that 20 gigabytes of VRAM is really, really nice. And when you compare it to NVIDIA's competition at this price point, that $780 gets you a 4070 Ti, which only has 12 gigabytes of VRAM. See, 12 gigabytes was excusable on the RTX 4070, but if you take 12 gigabytes and apply it to a $780 card, and people were upgrading, I mean, I did a whole video about this, but upgrading graphics cards 6 years or something like that. So you'd want more VRAM than 12 gigabytes, and this is definitely going to be a cap for this card, and definitely questionable for NVIDIA to do something like this. The 7900 XT with 20 gigabytes of VRAM is the clear choice. Now, if you do want ray tracing performance, that's what sucks, is the 4070 Ti is going to be faster at ray tracing, but that VRAM is actually going to limit how much ray tracing you can do on this card, because ray tracing uses more VRAM. Wow. NVIDIA really screwed themselves with this one. And that is probably why NVIDIA is actually planning on releasing RTX Super GPUs. And that's why maybe if you're at these price points, above like $600 or so. Because you maybe should wait until these are announced at least to see what's going to happen in the market. You know, theoretically about 15% faster than the 4070 Ti. And the 4070 Ti Super is going to have 16 gigabytes of VRAM, which does solve that VRAM problem that the 4070 Ti has at that price point. And what I might also see here is that the RTX 4070 is getting a super model, which I don't know how much this is going to cost. That's the only problem with this, but it might be significantly faster than the RTX 4070, but it will have the same amount of VRAM. So 12 gigabytes is not getting solved on the RTX 4070 Super. If you were, you know, concerned about VRAM at this price point, but you still needed NVIDIA, you know, like for whatever workflow you're doing, the best deal on the used market is to probably get an RTX 3090. Now these cards have 24 gigabytes of VRAM. So an absolute ton. That's as much as the RTX 4090, you know? But yeah, the 4070 Ti and the RTX 3090 are actually about the same performance. 24 gigabytes of VRAM though. That's definitely a very nice plus to have on the RTX 3090. Now, just to take into account though, the RTX 3090 is not very power efficient. Now we jump up to the higher end of price bracket, which we're talking the big boys now. Now, if we look on NVIDIA's pricing here with the RTX 4080, this card is going for a lot. It's just a lot, $1,100. This card is very fast and it has 16 gigabytes of VRAM on an NVIDIA graphics card, which is probably fine for years down the line, 16 gigs. Now, in terms of AMD's competition, we have seen that the 7900 XTX, which in terms of benchmarks performs about the same as the RTX 4080, but you can get this card for $950 right now. And we've actually seen the 7900 XTX go for less than that at times. We've seen it for $920 at times. And in my last pricing update video on GPUs, it was all the way down to like $900 at that time. And this card has 24 gigabytes of VRAM. I mean, I think that the 4080 with its 16 gigabytes is probably fine. The problem with this at this price point is NVIDIA knows exactly what they're doing. When you're spending this much on a graphics card, you're gonna want the extra features, and NVIDIA does offer those things like DLSS. You get better ray tracing. I mean, the 4080 has fast enough ray tracing to do Cyberpunk Overdrive. And that also applies to different programs. If you're doing like AI stuff, you know, different program compatibility and stuff like that. The 4080 has a bunch of different advantages. It's also a little bit more power efficient. I could see why someone would want to spend more money on this. But basically what I recommended would be, if you're just going to be doing rasterized gaming, you're not ray tracing or anything like that, and if you're mainly just gaming on your system, then the 7900 XTX is probably a way better deal. You save the $200, get that card. But if you really need the extra things for whatever you're doing, or if you're doing ray tracing, or you really think you're going to be using DLSS all the time, then the 4080 could actually make sense, which sucks to see, but yeah, this is NVIDIA upselling people on features. And this is where, you know, it enters into the top end. This is the people that have so much freaking money. What do you do with it? You can buy a 4090, which I find it ridiculous now. The whole new laws that are being in place with 4090s being sold to China, that a lot of cards are being sold directly to China. And that means that these cards are overpriced in the US, because the 4090 is supposed to cost $1,600, which is already a ridiculous price, but now it's going for $2,000, literally double the price of a 4080. And if you look in terms of the performance here, it is not double the performance of a 4080. Okay, we're looking at about 30% difference between those two cards. If you have this much money, that you're at that price point where, like, why are you even watching this video? Why do you need a buying guide to get your graphics card? But yeah, these are the best deals for December of 2023. Like, I hope I can give you a nice recap here. Now, if we do go down the list, I'd say some of the standout cards that we're getting right now is actually one on the budget end of the market. So the 6650 XT, yeah, this card's $250, but if you do deal hunt for this thing, it is a great value at $210. That is a freaking steal. If you do jump up just a little bit though, and you get more VRAM for around $300 to $320 with the 6700 XT, it's not a bad deal. There used to be some really good deals in the 6800, but now that card's kind of sold out. So now the $400 price point is not really looking all that good. $550, you can get an RTX 4070. I would actually choose that over the 7800 XT at this price point. In terms of graphics cards deals, those are some of the best ones that I found: the 4070, the 6700 XT, and the 6650 XT. But let me know what you think. Have you bought any of these cards? Have you been happy with them? Did you find any of those crazy deals and scoop up on them at the meantime? Let me know in the comments below. Hopefully I could help you out with this. Obviously, I do have Amazon affiliate links in the description. So if you're interested in Amazon affiliates, which actually go to support me without any extra cost to you, I get a commission of that if you use the link. Hopefully I can help you out. Good luck to you, especially in this holiday season. Guys, have a good one. See you in the next video, and peace.